My dear friend, I want you to pause for a moment. Before you get swept up in the hustle of life again, before you curl back into nameless thoughts, I invite you into a space of honesty, a moment where it's just you and me. I'm not here to lecture you from a pedestal. I'm here, sitting across from you, as someone who has walked through the darkest corners of his own mind, to tell you this. You absolutely have the power to master your thought, and that is exactly where your life begins to change. You know, all of us, even me, even the people you admire, have faced negative thoughts, those quiet whispers in your head saying, I'm not good enough, I can't do this, this is too hard for me. They don't come like loud enemies, they creep in gently, subtly, until one day you realize you've been taken over. But I want you to remember something important, something no one may have clearly told you. You have the power to choose your thoughts. Your mind, my friend, is like fertile soil. Whatever seed you plant in it, whether positive or negative, will grow. If you unconsciously sow doubt, fear, and sadness, don't be surprised if one day your life feels overrun with anxiety, but if each day you deliberately plant seeds of confidence, gratitude, and the desire to succeed, then gradually your life will begin to reflect exactly those things. So what's the good news here? It's that you don't have to wait for anyone to come water your mind, and you don't need anyone's permission to begin planting. It's all in your hands. And yet for that very reason, many people allow their minds to be controlled by negativity, not because they intentionally choose pessimism, but because they choose nothing. And in that absence of choice, the outside world, social media, the news, the daily complaints, quietly plant toxic seeds into their mind. And then they live in a loop. Day after day, they feel discontent, tired, disappointed, without understanding why. But you are not them. You are sitting here, listening to me, and I believe that you are ready to break that cycle. You don't need to do anything grand right now. You only need to start with one thing. Take control of your thoughts, and you'll begin to witness something extraordinary unfold. I'm not saying this is just another motivational speech you've heard before. This is a wake-up call, a bell ringing to remind you that if you don't change how you think, you won't change your life. And if you continue to let doubt steer the wheel, you are actively letting go of a future that was meant to be yours. You can live a remarkable life, but it starts only when you intentionally plant what you want to see bloom in your reality. I will walk with you through each step, each method, not just to eliminate negativity, but to build a mindset that is strong, resilient, and capable of driving you to act, to persist, and to rise in spite of adversity. But before we move on, I need you to deeply remember this. Life doesn't improve by luck, it only improves by change, and that change begins inside your mind. Imagine you're standing in a garden. In front of you is bare soil. You can choose to plant sunflowers, or you can let weeds grow wild, but one thing is certain, whatever you plant will grow. The mind is no different. If you don't guard it daily, it will be invaded. If you don't plant faith, hope, and vision, it will automatically default back to doubt, procrastination, and despair. I know you might be thinking, this all sounds tiring. I don't have time for self-improvement every day. But let me ask you, do you have time to scroll endlessly on your phone? Do you have time to worry about things you can't control? Do you have time to sit with people who only complain and never act? The problem has never been a lack of time. The problem is what you prioritize. And if you don't prioritize yourselves, who will? You don't need to start with huge changes. Start with one small act each morning. Don't check your phone the moment you wake up. Instead, read 10 pages of a good book. Listen to something inspiring. Write down 3 things you're grateful for. Note down one goal you want to move toward today. Don't underestimate the small. 10 pages a day becomes over 3,600 pages a year. And that could be the difference between a stagnant life and a transformative one. But reading alone is not enough. You must act. If you hear something valuable, immediately ask, how can I apply this today? And then do it. When you start taking action every day, you'll begin to witness a powerful shift. Negative thoughts start losing their grip on you. You no longer sit around overthinking. You begin solving. You stop making excuses. You start executing. You start blaming. You start owning. And why? Because when your mind is trained daily, it no longer accepts mediocrity as default. Let me say this clearly. This is not something you do once and forget. Negative thoughts will always try to return. Fear will always lurk. Doubt will always whisper. But it is exactly through the daily training of your mindset that you remain in control. And if one day you miss the mark, don't beat yourself up. Just don't let one lazy day become a habit of inaction. You don't need to be perfect. You only need to keep returning to the right path. Self-development is not something we do when life is easy. It's what we do so that life doesn't break us when it gets hard. It's the armor you wear so that when life comes swinging, you're still standing. You don't collapse. You don't fall back into your old fragile self. And if you walk this path long enough, if you stay consistent every day, you will begin to see what I once saw in myself. Life starts to shift in direct response to the seeds you've been planting in your mind each day. If you'd like, I can continue translating the next parts of the series in the same seamless, powerful tone. Just let me know which section you'd like to work on next. The mind is never a blank, undefined space. Either you deliberately shape it every day, or you allow the outside world to fill it with signals you never consciously chose. And when you don't choose, it means you're silently giving others permission to think for you, to react for you. Most people don't realize they're being trained every single day, not by a formal teacher, but by the endless stream of information, shallow conversations, attention-fragmenting videos, fear-driven news, and seemingly harmless remarks. These influences don't knock before entering. They slip in quietly when you're distracted, when you're tired, when you're not paying attention. Bit by bit, they reshape how you think, how you feel, and how you respond to the world. That's how someone who once had ambition becomes indifferent. That's why someone who once dreamed of rising begins to repeat the same aimless, unmotivated days. It's not because they lack talent or opportunity. It's because they lack one essential thing: the discipline to train their mind every single day. Your mind functions like a deep learning machine. It remembers, it analyzes, it repeats. If you're not careful, it will absorb the negativity around it and echo it back as if it were your true inner voice. You'll find yourself giving up in the face of difficulty because you've subconsciously learned that failure is the end. You'll hesitate to begin something new because you've been programmed by others' fearful warnings. You'll procrastinate for no reason because your mind has grown familiar with the comfort of just a little longer. What's more alarming is that all of this happens quietly, without sound, without warning. No one taught you to guard the gates of your mind. No school gave you a roadmap for filtering the mental toxins you're exposed to daily. No one told you this truth: if you don't choose what you feed your mind, you'll end up living according to what others want you to believe. You must stop that. You must pause and ask yourself, who is truly shaping the way I think every day? And if the answer isn't me, then it's time to reclaim control. Don't wait until your mind is fatigued to begin repairing it. Don't wait for things to fall apart before seeking inner strength. Just as your body needs training to stay strong, your mind must be sharpened to remain clear, steady, and powerful. The simplest way to begin is to change how you start each day. Don't let your phone be the first thing that touches your mind when you wake up. Social media, sensational headlines, the judgment of strangers, all of it awaits you in just a few swipes. If you allow those things in before you've established a positive mental state, you've already lost the first minutes of the day. Dedicate your mornings to mindfulness. A page that stretches your thinking, a quote that makes you sit upright, a few quiet minutes writing your goals. These small moments lay the track your thoughts will follow for the rest of the day. You must also be selective and serious about the mental environment you allow. Don't consume passively just because something is present. Set this principle for yourself: everything I allow into my mind must serve my long-term growth. If a conversation drains you, step away. If a video leads you into comparison and insecurity, shut it off. If a piece of news fills you with irrational fear, replace it with understanding. Your mind deserves to live in a space of high-quality input, because the future you're building starts right there. Don't let someone else's lazy thinking become the voice inside your head. They may laugh at your goals, belittle your ambition, or doubt your choices, but that's a reflection of their own fear, not the truth about you. And if you're not careful, you'll start believing them and live a life that was never yours to begin with. Likewise, don't let negativity become habit. One toxic video might leave you feeling down, but 10, 100 of them, and your worldview starts to shift. One morning of bad news might slow you down, but a whole month of it will erode your mental resilience. You must stop the cycle by consciously replacing, by choosing wisely, and by curating a mental space that helps you grow. Remember, the world is not neutral, does not wait quietly while you figure out who you want to become. It's always moving, always filled with forces trying to shape your thinking, and if you don't train your mind, those forces will do it for you, without your awareness or consent. But you are not a victim, you are the designer, the architect, the master of the mental house called yourself. And I believe that once you become aware of this, you'll never again allow your mind to be someone else's puppet. You'll train it, upgrade it, and turn it into the sharpest tool you own. Success does not come from chance. It is the product of a mind that has been trained, mastered, and directed, each day with clarity and intention. If you desire sustainability in your thoughts and actions, then this is where you must begin. Do not let the world shape your mind into something you're not. You must choose who you become and train for it until it is real. There's no shortage of people who read books every day, no shortage of those who follow hundreds of motivational channels, nor of those who proudly claim they're working on themselves. But if it all stops at consuming, without applying, then all of it, the books, the videos, the lessons, are merely a thin veil that masks the illusion of progress, while in truth, you're standing still. Here's the reality. Knowledge without application is not power. It's weight. And if you do nothing with what you learn, then you're not growing. You're just keeping yourself busy in a well-disguised delay. I've seen this in myself before. In my younger years, I spent hours reading, listening, and taking notes, but every time it came to taking real action, I hesitated. I told myself, I need to understand more. I'll wait for the right moment, or I should prepare better. But eventually, I realized, the more I knew but didn't act on, the more paralyzed I became. I was trapped inside my own understanding. I wasn't lacking advice or theories. I was only lacking one thing, the first step. And do you know what's the most dangerous part? It's when you start feeling satisfied just by learning without ever acting. You feel like you're making progress, but in truth, you're only delaying your growth beneath a sophisticated surface of intellect. You watch videos about discipline, but have never truly kept a promise to yourself. You read books on success, but haven't completed the unfinished task you set for yourself last month. Your journal is full of notes, yet you haven't stepped outside your comfort zone to apply even one thing from it. I call this disguised procrastination, because it doesn't look like ordinary laziness. It makes you feel like you're doing the right thing. It gives the illusion that you're advancing. But in reality, it's a trap. It keeps you locked in by the comforting feeling of, I'm doing something, while in truth your actual results remain unchanged. And then time goes by, and you suddenly realize you've consumed too much, but changed too little. You need to stop and ask yourself, why am I learning this? If your answer isn't tied to a specific action, then you're stockpiling knowledge passively. No different than hoarding food you never cook. Knowledge that isn't used becomes dull and ultimately useless. So every time you read a line from a book or hear something that moves you, ask yourself, how can I apply this today? Don't wait until you're free, or until tomorrow, or until you feel ready. Choose one small action right then and there. It might be changing the way you respond to a family member. It might be writing out a simple plan. It might be standing up and completing a task you've been avoiding. It doesn't matter what it is, as long as you act. Because you can't think your way out of fear. You can only act through it. You can only release it through real progress, and you'll never feel confident just by pondering confidence. You must prove to yourself that you know how to act, even in the smallest ways. I once asked a friend, someone who always claimed to love learning, what book he was currently reading. He listed several titles, but when I asked, "What's the last thing from those books that you actually applied in your life?" he fell silent, not because he hadn't learned anything or didn't understand, but because he had never converted knowledge into behavior. And this is where transformation begins, when learning becomes habit. You could read 10,000 pages, but if you don't form even a single new habit from it, then what you've learned was for entertainment, not for growth. On the other hand, a single book, a single paragraph, a single quote, if applied deeply, can entirely change the course of your life. The issue isn't the amount of knowledge. The issue is the quality of action. So be honest with yourself. Every time you feel tempted to watch another motivational video, ask, have I applied anything from the last one? If not, don't watch another. Stand up and do something with what you've already learned. Only when action becomes the natural extension of learning will your growth be real. Also, never underestimate the power of small actions. Something as simple as turning off your phone notifications, waking up 30 minutes earlier, or writing down a promise to yourself each morning can be the piece that unlocks an entirely new mindset. Because when you act, you're not just applying what you've learned, you're rewiring the way you speak to yourself. You're saying, I'm someone who does, not just someone who thinks. That's when you begin breaking free from disguised procrastination. That's when you stop seeking more motivation, because action itself becomes the strongest source of motivation. That's when you stop living like an aimless student and start living like the leader of your own life. Learning is the first step, but action is where everything of real value begins. Don't lull yourself with untested knowledge. Do, try, stumble and learn again. Because true growth isn't found in what you've read. It's found in what you've dared to live through. There's one thing most people are never taught. You are not your past. You are not the mistakes you made, not the opportunities you missed, and certainly not the faded image of yourself that lives in someone else's memory. The past is simply a record. It is not a sentence, and it holds no power to define you unless you continue handing it that privilege. I've seen incredible people trap themselves in darkness simply because they couldn't let go of what had already happened. One failure, and they carry it like a stain for a decade. One wrong word, and they conclude they no longer deserve to speak up. One broken relationship, and it becomes a weight on their backs so that every step forward feels heavy and slow. But here's what you need to understand. Just because something still lingers in your memory doesn't mean it still matters. What's done is done. Don't live forever behind a door that's already closed. And the truth is, what holds you back isn't the past itself, it's your emotional attachment to it. You can't change what happened. You can't rewrite the decisions you once made. You can't go back in time to say, if only. But you can absolutely choose not to let it control your present. And the moment you make that choice is the exact moment you begin reclaiming ownership of your life. I'm not here to deny your emotions. I'm not telling you to be numb to real pain. But I do want you to look deeper. Is holding on to that sadness making you a better person, or is it slowly making you smaller? Do you truly believe that blaming yourself every night for something that happened 5 years ago will help you heal, or is it just prolonging a wound that should have been closed long ago? Some pain doesn't need time to fade. It needs you to decide that it ends now. I've met many people trapped in endless loops because in their hearts they still haven't forgiven not just others but themselves. They hate the version of themselves that was naive, that trusted the wrong people, that gave up, that failed. But listen closely. The way you treated yourself in the past should never be the reason you deny yourself a brighter future. Forgiveness isn't about pretending it didn't happen. It's about freeing yourself from the invisible chains of regret. I want you to imagine this. You're driving toward your future. The rear-view mirror can give you glimpses of what's behind. But if you stare at it too long, you'll crash into everything ahead. The past is a mirror, meant for reference, not direction. The lessons you may carry forward. But the pain, the anger, the unanswered questions, leave them behind. You don't have to wear your past on your back to prove anything to anyone. And don't shrink yourself just because you once fell. Falling is the mark of someone who is walking, not a sign of weakness. The people you admire today, the successful, the inspiring, the confident, they've failed too. They've been rejected too. But instead of letting their past extinguish the fire within them, they used it to fuel the road ahead. And you can do the same. The moment you decide to move forward instead of clinging to what's already behind you. One of the subtlest mistakes I've seen people make is repeating the phrase, "I can't change. I've always been this way." But the truth is, you've never always been that way. You're just living out an outdated version of yourself that you haven't had the courage to let go of. You're not the same as you were last year. You're very different from who you were 5 years ago, and you'll keep evolving if you give yourself permission to move forward and stop settling in a chapter that no longer matches your current potential. I'm not here to dismiss what you've been through. I know some wounds are deep, some pain is real. But what I want you to understand is this. You don't have to live forever as a victim. You can choose to be the survivor, the one who rises, the one who turns every old scar into fuel for something new. The one who stands tall and says, "I will not let the past define me. I will define myself by how I move forward," because if you don't move on, you'll find yourself reliving the same kind of days over and over. You'll feel the same emotions, face the same limits, and replay the same old story, even though the world outside is constantly changing. And the most heartbreaking part is not that you don't have opportunity, but that you no longer open your heart to receive it, because part of you is still living in the past. Let today be the day you stop and decide, not to forget, but to live fully in the present, and walk boldly into your future. Place your hand over your heart, close your eyes, and say to yourself, "I've been through enough. And from today on, I carry it no more." Because you have nothing to prove to the past. You only need to live in a way that makes your future thank you for having the courage to walk away. You don't have to look far to start feeling not enough. Just open your phone, scroll social media for a few minutes, listen to a few sparkling success stories, and suddenly you begin to feel slow, inferior, or even invisible, not because you lack value, but because you are comparing your raw, real journey with someone else's carefully curated highlights. And when you do that long enough, your own path begins to blur. You no longer see your road clearly, you only see someone else's, and begin to think you're lost. I've witnessed people give up not because they lacked the ability, but because they convinced themselves they were losing simply because they hadn't reached someone else's position. They lost their drive not because they lacked goals, but because they believed they were behind, not as good, or too late. But pause for a moment and really think. Behind compared to whom? Late according to what? You truly know the journey that person has taken? Or are you only seeing the polished version they've chosen to show? Comparison is a deceptively elegant trap. At first, it whispers gently, "Try a little harder." But if you're not mindful, it soon turns into a poisonous murmur. You'll never be like them. And just like that, the self-belief you've built over years begins to crack. You stop seeing progress in yourself. You stop trusting your process. Because you keep lifting your head to look around, instead of looking within. Here's the truth. None of us starts at the same point. Some people grow up in supportive environments while others fight their way up from below zero. Some are guided by mentors while others stumble through every step. Some move fast and then stall. Others move slowly, but never stop. And you, with all your experiences, your scars, your dreams, you are walking a one-of-a-kind path that cannot be copied. The fact that you are different isn't your weakness, it is your worth. Don't look at someone else's milestone and decide you've failed. Some seeds take 3 days to sprout. Some trees take 3 years just to root deeply in silence. When you compare yourself still rooting to someone who has just started blooming, you are missing the real context of growth. You're comparing your point A to someone else's point M, and that will never be a fair measurement. What I want you to truly understand is this: the only benchmark that matters is who you were yesterday. Don't ask, am I as good as someone else? Ask, am I moving forward? If the answer is yes, even by one small step, then you are on the right path. No one was born to reach the finish line at the same time. Everyone carries different lessons, a different rhythm, and the worst thing you can do to yourself is to force your life to follow a timeline that was never yours. Don't let someone else's success make you feel guilty about your process. That's the fastest way to lose motivation. Remember, their success doesn't diminish your chance. Their light doesn't dim your light. This world is wide enough for everyone to shine, as long as you stop trying to be another star and start living fully in your own orbit. I once heard a powerful quote: "Comparison is the thief of joy." And it's absolutely true. You could be in the middle of your own growth, but just because someone else got there faster, you lose all sense of pride. You're learning how to overcome yourself, but because someone else seems better, you begin doubting your own worth. And suddenly, instead of walking with confidence, you're dragging yourself forward with shame. But my friend, growth never happens through guilt. It only comes from awareness and appreciation of who you are. Start with this one small shift. Every time you see someone achieve something, instead of asking, "Why don't I have that yet?" ask, "What can I learn from them?" Turn envy into admiration. Turn pressure into inspiration. Turn comparison into reflection, not for judgment, but to recognize that every person is a mirror reflecting a different angle of human potential. Then return to the most important question: where am I going? If you know that answer, if you have a direction you believe in, then there is no reason to be shaken by someone else's speed or path. Arriving later does not make you a failure. Arriving at the right place does. Finally, remember, comparison makes you doubt. Focus makes you powerful. When you channel your energy into developing yourself, there is no room left for measuring against others. When you understand that self-belief doesn't come from being better than someone else, but from being grounded in yourself, you'll walk with a confidence you've never felt before. So, starting today, I hope you pause every time you're about to compare yourself to someone else. Close your eyes, take a deep breath, and ask, in what way have I done better than yesterday's me? If you can answer that, then you are already winning, and that is all you ever need to win against yourself. Day by day, step by step, action by action. Your life won't transform because of one lucky break. It won't shift just because you picked up a few interesting ideas or happened to hear a motivational speech. Your life truly changes the moment you make a clear, resolute, non-negotiable decision that from this point forward you will live differently, think differently, and act differently. Not as a trial, not just to see how it feels, but as a deep and personal commitment. I will not return to the person I used to be. The problem is, most people go through life without ever truly deciding anything. They think about change, they dream of success, they talk about what they want to achieve, but deep down, they leave themselves an escape route. A bit of hesitation, a backup plan, a door they can quietly walk back through if things get hard. And that lack of finality is why so many goals are abandoned, so much potential wasted, and so many dreams buried. I've seen it happen over and over again. A promising person begins their journey, but just a few weeks later, they stop. Not because they aren't capable, but because they never actually decided. Their mind was still full of what ifs. What if I fail? What if people criticize me? What if it doesn't work? And so they walk half-heartedly, live half-heartedly, believe half-heartedly. But you can't build a powerful life on a hesitant decision. You only go far when you close the door to turning back. A real decision doesn't come from a moment of fleeting excitement. It comes from a deeper awakening, a realization that you simply can't continue living the same way, that you're tired of repeating old mistakes, that you know without question that you deserve a better version of yourself. And when that feeling becomes strong enough, you stop making excuses, you get up, you act, and you begin to change. Think back to the pivotal moments in your life, the times when you paused, wrestled within, and asked, could I choose differently? Maybe it was a job you hated, a relationship that drained you, a lifestyle that pulled you downward. You knew it wasn't right, but instead of deciding, you delayed. You waited for a sign, you searched for more evidence, you hoped your feelings would catch up. But the truth is, all you needed was one thing, the courage to make a definitive choice. Successful people don't have more options than you do. They just hesitate less. They understand that hesitation is the silent killer of progress. Every time you postpone a decision, you weaken your inner strength. Every time you avoid choosing a clear direction, you give control to your circumstances. And at some point, you're no longer the one steering. You're just reacting to what happens. I want you to reflect deeply on this. A decision isn't just a starting point. It's an anchor. It's what keeps you grounded when the storm hits, when you face obstacles, when you feel discouraged, when you're tempted to quit. Your original decision reminds you why you began. And if that decision is deep enough, real enough, clear enough, you won't get swept away. You'll stand firm, not because it's easy, but because you already decided not to go back. I'm not denying fear. I know the feeling of sleepless nights, of wondering whether you're capable of hearing 100 doubtful voices echoing in your mind. But I also know this: clarity in your decision is more powerful than any fear. Once you truly choose, with no retreat, no justification, no wavering, fear loses its grip, and you begin to live from an entirely different energy. The world doesn't need more people who want to try. It needs people who have decided and are willing to pay the price to keep the promise they made to themselves. You don't need to be perfect to begin. You just need to be clear that you won't quit. Your actions may be small, but if they are guided by a powerful decision, they will carry the weight of purpose, and then everything you do, every choice you make, every response you give, will reflect a person who has chosen to live with intention. So today I invite you to pause, not to think more, but to decide. Decide what you will no longer tolerate. Decide what you will begin, even if fear is still present. Decide who you want to become, and then live like there is no way back. Don't wait for the perfect conditions. Don't wait for your emotions to stabilize. Don't wait for anyone's permission. No one can make that decision for your life. And if you don't make it now, then when? Remember this: destiny is not a matter of chance. It is the result of decisions made with your full being. And only when you decide fully do you begin to live a life that truly belongs to you, not as a bystander passing through, but as the architect building it with conscious choice. And if you're hearing these words now, I believe you're ready. You don't need anyone to validate that for you. You just need to rise, look in the mirror, and say, I choose. That's it. But once you truly choose, everything begins to change. It's not the biggest life events that drain your energy. It's the unconscious reactions, the emotional outbursts, the moments when you allow others to dictate your mood. There's a silent truth I want you to see. Many people don't live by their own reason. They live on emotional autopilot, triggered, manipulated, and steered by others. And when you live like that long enough, you're no longer in control of your life. You're simply reacting. A single comment sparks your anger, a glance wounds you, a rejection makes you question your worth, an unexpected situation causes you to snap. You lose control, you react too quickly, you say things you shouldn't, you do things you regret, and then comes the remorse. But this cycle will continue if you don't learn to master your emotions before they master you. The danger with emotional reactions is how fast they happen and how long their consequences last. A rash decision can damage a relationship. A heated word can destroy the trust you've built for years. One impulsive act in anger can permanently alter how others see you. Tragically, most people only learn this lesson after they've lost something valuable. You can't control what others will say to you or how the world will treat you. But you can always control how you the space between stimulus and response is where your true freedom lives. In that pause, you can choose to stay silent, take a breath, walk away from the conversation, or simply observe without being pulled in. That is strength. That is character. That is the mark of someone who has trained their emotional intelligence, a subject no school will teach you, but life tests you on every day. Real strength doesn't lie in controlling others. It lies in ensuring no one can control your state of mind unless you allow it. Emotionally strong people aren't void of anger, sadness, or disappointment. They feel all of it. But they don't let those emotions dictate their actions. They don't let a fleeting feeling create a permanent outcome. They pause and consciously choose how to respond. If you want to be the kind of person who cannot be shaken, you must begin training in the smallest everyday moments. When someone cuts you off in traffic, you could explode or you could smile and move on. When a loved one says something harsh, you could react or you could stay quiet and seek to understand what's beneath it. When something at work goes wrong, you could panic and blame, or you could calmly step back and solve it. Every one of those moments not only shapes your outer results, they're silently wiring your emotional nervous system on the inside. Understand this: emotions are not your enemy. They're signals, indicators, mirrors reflecting your inner state. But if you don't know how to manage them, they become the biggest force working against your progress. Emotions are meant to be observed, not lived inside. Learn to step outside of them. Instead of saying, "I'm an angry person," say, "I'm feeling angry." That simple shift in language changes your awareness, and that shift changes your reaction. You won't master yourself by making one grand declaration. This is a skill, and like any skill, it requires daily practice. Start by recognizing your emotions instead of immediately acting on them. Create a pause, even just a few seconds, between feeling and doing. In those few seconds, you can completely shift the outcome. You can save a relationship, you can salvage an opportunity, you can protect your inner peace. I know it's not easy. There will be moments when the emotional wave feels too strong to stop. But it's in those moments that control matters most. When you can stay grounded in anger, when you can smile through insult, when you can remain calm under pressure. That's not weakness, that's elite-level strength. You want respect. Be the one who controls their emotions. You want to be trusted? Be the one who responds with thought, not reaction. You want long-term success? Be the one who makes decisions from clarity, not chaos. Mental resilience is an invisible but priceless asset, and it only comes from the ongoing practice of emotional self-regulation. So starting today, I invite you to raise the bar for yourself. I do not react impulsively. I choose to respond intentionally. Each time you succeed in mastering an emotion, you're not just progressing on your growth path. You're building an armor of self-command. One day, when the world around you is in chaos, you'll look back and realize it was those small moments where you held back your anger, maintained your composure, overcame a knee-jerk reaction that made you unshakable today. Don't let your emotions lead you. Let your reason, your understanding, and your life principles lead. Don't let others control your state of mind. Don't let small things pull you off course. You have the power to choose your response, and in that choice lies your highest form of freedom. Success doesn't begin with luck, circumstances, or help from others. It begins with your mindset. And not just some cold, mechanical, logical mindset, but a strong, flexible, resilient, and proactive internal operating system. If you observe long enough, you'll see. Successful people don't just differ in their actions. They differ in the way they think, the the way they perceive problems, the way they decode challenges, and the way they redefine failure. You cannot act like a successful person if you're still thinking like someone who fails. You cannot make bold decisions if your mind is stuck in small, limiting patterns. And you certainly can't persist toward a long-term goal if your thoughts are easily swayed, easily influenced, or quick to give up. The mind is the starting point of everything. It's where decisions are made, behavior is shaped, and the entire trajectory of your life is created. The first thing you need to understand is this: mindset is not innate. It's trained. Just like muscles grow through repeated training, a powerful mindset is built through moments when you deliberately choose to think differently. You don't naturally become more positive, more clear-headed, or more calm. You become that way because you're aware enough to not let your mind drift along default path. And if you don't train it daily, the world will quickly reprogram you with old, limiting defaults. One of the most obvious traits of a successful mindset is the ability to think long-term and deep, while the average person reacts from short-term emotions, anger, frustration, impulsiveness. Successful people set their emotions aside and ask, what choice brings me closer to my goal? They don't act for momentary relief. They act for strategic alignment. They don't seek temporary comfort. They choose what is right for long-term strength. That alone changes the game. Next, successful people train their minds to focus on solutions instead of problems. Instead of complaining about what's happening, they channel their energy into one question: what can I do with this situation? They don't freeze up in helplessness because they understand, no matter how bad the situation is, there is always some part of it they can control. Their ability to shift attention from the impossible to the possible allows them to move forward while others stay stuck. They also train themselves to think critically, even about their own thoughts. They don't assume every idea in their mind is accurate. They constantly question, reassess, and look for counter-evidence. They don't let their egos steer them. They know that if they don't challenge themselves, life eventually will, and it won't always be gentle. Successful people aren't afraid of being wrong. What they fear is stubbornly clinging to outdated thinking. They learn, they update, they stay agile, and this agility keeps them from falling behind in a world that evolves every single day. Another powerful trait: they build a growth mindset, the belief that every skill, capacity, and result can be improved through effort and learning. They don't label themselves with phrases like, "I'm not good at this, this isn't for me," or "I just can't." Instead, they say, "I'm not good at this yet, but I can learn." That belief alone opens doors. In contrast, people with a fixed mindset see every failure as proof of their limits, and they give up when they don't see quick results. You can start thinking like a successful person by observing what's going on inside your mind each day. When you face a difficult situation, pause and ask, am I thinking in terms of solutions, or am I blaming? Am I reacting emotionally or responding based on long-term goals? Am I using a victim mindset or a leadership mindset to interpret this situation? These questions don't just shift your awareness. They slowly rebuild the foundation of a truly successful mindset within you. Your thinking also needs daily nourishment from high-quality input. Let your mind regularly engage with deep questions, different perspectives, stories of resilience, powerful books, and thought-provoking conversations. Don't let your thoughts revolve only around trivial news, toxic comments, or shallow content meant to kill time. You are programming your mind with what you read, hear, and think about every day. Choose that input carefully, as if you are building a new operating system for your life. And remember, mindset doesn't change from one powerful declaration. It only transforms through daily training, especially in real-life challenges. When you're tired, when you're rejected, when plans fall apart, when people doubt you, that's when you choose whether to operate from a weak mindset or a powerful one. That's when you prove whether you've truly evolved in how you think, or whether you're still trapped in the same old mental loop. Every time it happens, you're either moving forward or repeating the same story. So, if you truly want to reach greater outcomes, don't just upgrade your skills, upgrade your thinking first. Because strong skills running on poor thinking will still lead you in the wrong direction, but a powerful mindset, even if you lack experience, will always find a way to succeed. And you can start today. No complexity required. Just one clear commitment. I will no longer let my mind operate on old default. I will train it, lead it, and turn it into the sharpest tool that moves me forward. From the time you were very young, you were called not just by your given name, but also by countless labels the world attached to you. She's the shy girl. He has no talent. That one's always been weak in school, too stubborn to succeed. And when you hear those labels long enough, you start to believe them. Before you even realize it, you stop living by your own instinct. You start living under the shadow others have cast over you. Even if it's wrong, it feels familiar enough not to question. This is the most frightening part. Most people aren't living as their true selves. They're living as the identity that's been imposed on them. They carry the weight of their past, the prejudices, the judgments of others, and mistake it all for truth. They box themselves in with self-definitions like, I'm introverted, I always give up, I'm not good at communicating, I wasn't born to lead. But have you ever paused and asked yourself, who first told me that? And why have I believed it for so long? Identity is not a fixed file, it's a living structure, built each day by your choices, your actions, and the dialogue you hold with yourself. Others can claim to define who you are, but they cannot live your life. They can't feel your inner struggles. They can't see the quiet hunger inside you. They definitely can't know which version of yourself you're yearning to become. And if you let them define you, you're unconsciously rejecting your most sacred power. The power to define you. I once asked a young, incredibly talented person, why don't you dare do it? She answered, because I've always been told I lack confidence. I believe that's just who I am. I looked at her and said, it's not that you lack confidence. It's that you've been living as if that were true. And you're no different. If you've ever believed you're not enough, not suited, not capable, it's not because that's true. It's because you've repeated that thought so many times that your brain now accepts it as your real identity. But believe me, no one is born with a fixed identity. You weren't handed a name tag at birth that defined your destiny. You are not permanently stuck in a version of yourself. Everything can be redefined if you have the courage to begin again. Identity isn't something you wait for others to assign. It's a process you take into your own hands through small actions, right choices, and promises you keep to yourself. Others may stick labels on you, but only you can reprogram your internal image. And that internal image influences everything. How you behave, how you show up, how you love yourself, how you face the world. If you're still carrying a weak, fragile, unworthy image of yourself, then no matter how many skills you gain, you'll sabotage yourself before the world ever tests you. So the first thing you need to do is ask, who am I really when I'm not defined by others? If no one were judging, comparing, or placing limits, what kind of person would you choose to become? Rewrite your self-definition, not with words others have used, but with the choices you make today. Let the past be a lesson, not a prison. Let memory be a place of learning, not the foundation of a weak identity. Anytime you doubt your worth, remember, no one else can give you the identity you deserve, except you. Others can inspire, support, or see your potential, but if you don't see it yourself, if you refuse to claim it, then all the external effort will feel like light hitting a wall you've built yourself. Instead of asking, who am I? Try asking, who do I want to become? And from that point forward, let each action reflect that answer. If you want to be confident, wake up early and keep even the smallest promise to yourself. If you want to be disciplined, finish what you planned, even if no one's watching. If you want to be an inspiration, live in a way that gives others hope just by looking at you. You don't need permission to become what you choose. You only need to begin living that way. There will be moments when you slip back into old versions of yourself. Voices in your head will whisper, "You're all talk, you can't keep this up. Don't push too hard." But remember, those voices are not truths. They're just echoes of an old system, and you're building a new one. Each time you choose to live differently, you reprogram your identity. Each time you stay strong through a challenge, you're proving to yourself you're no longer who you used to be. No one can take that from you, because once you understand that identity is something you create, you no longer need to live to please others. You don't need to prove anything. You simply need to live, aligned with the values you believe in, the goals you've chosen, and the resilience you build each day. Not all wounds come from falling. Some come from weightless words, indifferent glances, or relationships that seem harmless on the surface but quietly drain your life force from within. If you've ever walked away from a meeting feeling exhausted, if you've spoken to someone and afterward felt smaller, more doubtful, or stripped of motivation, then chances are you've been allowing the wrong people too close to the center of your energy field. And it's time you learn to protect your inner space as something sacred. Energy is not abstract. It is the emotional frequency you carry, the mental state you maintain each day, and the reservoir you draw from to make decisions, take action, and pursue the life you dream of. People who live fully, clearly, and with purpose aren't exempt from fatigue. They simply know how to preserve and renew their energy rather than let others deplete it. They do not allow anyone to invade their mental space casually. Understand this, some people mean no harm, but their presence is heavy. They constantly complain, talk only about limitations, and plant fear, doubt, and hesitation in you. They make you feel guilty for wanting to grow. They make you feel arrogant for becoming confident. They pull you back with words like, "Don't dream too big." People like you should I'm just being honest. And when you hear these long enough, you start to shrink to fit into their world. That's when you must realize loyalty to a relationship should never outweigh loyalty to your personal growth. Sometimes transformation doesn't come from learning something new, but from having the courage to release what no longer fits. Not everyone who once walked with you is meant to continue the journey. Some relationships are meant for a certain season, and holding on to them too long only leads you off course. Start purifying your environment intentionally. Observe carefully after each interaction. Who makes you feel stronger, clearer, more fulfilled? Who makes you feel like you have to defend yourself, explain your worth, or apologize for wanting more? The answer won't come from logic, it will come from how your energy feels. And you must trust that signal. Your intuition never lies. Once you realize that protecting your energy is a key part of conscious living, you'll stop feeling guilty for walking away. You'll understand that kindness is not the same as self-sacrifice. Love doesn't mean losing yourself just to maintain peace, and saying no to what no longer aligns with you is the most loving act you can do for your soul. Instead, move closer to those who ignite your energy, who help you believe in the highest version of yourself. It could be a mentor, an inspiring friend, a community where you don't have to shrink to fit in. Let those people fill your space with trust, encouragement, and non-judgment. Invest your time in people who feel like home, where you can be fully yourself and still be challenged to grow into more. Ultimately, I want you to internalize this. Your life will not be defined by everything you consume, but by what you choose to keep. The energy you sustain will become the space you live in. The people you allow close will become the mirrors that shape your future identity. And if you want to live a life that is strong, conscious, and worthy, then protecting your energy is not just a choice, it's a duty, a commitment, a clear boundary between the old you and the version that is rising. And if someone constantly makes you question your worth, justify your dreams, or shrink yourself to stay around them, you already know what to do. No need for drama, no resentment, just walk away. Because you deserve to live in a space that nurtures you, not one that slowly wears you down. Obstacles are not signs that you should quit. They are the final test before you step into a new level of living. They don't show up to stop you. They show up to ask one question: are you truly serious about what you've chosen? And if your answer is to give up, then you were never fully committed. But if your answer is to keep going, even slowly, even silently, then in that very moment, you're creating a difference most of the world will never notice. I've seen many people give up simply because they mistook difficulty as a sign of the wrong path. They began something with enthusiasm, but when the first challenge arrived, they started to question everything. They assumed that a small failure was a warning to turn back. But they forgot one thing. Every journey of real worth passes through rugged terrain. If your path is always easy, maybe you haven't gone far enough. Successful people have also wanted to quit. They've gone through breakdowns, self-doubt, and betrayals. But they differ in one crucial way. They don't let temporary emotions become permanent decisions. They understand that each time they overcome an obstacle, they're expanding the borders of their inner strength. And it's in those moments, when no one is cheering, when no one is watching, that they lay the real foundation of their resilience. You don't have to be strong all the time, but you need to know that even in your weakest moments, you can still take one small step, just one step forward, not backward. Don't wait for motivation to return. Don't wait for energy to come back. Don't wait for someone else to encourage you. Remind yourself, I am moving and I will not stop. Because when you stay still too long, delay disguises itself as logic. And you start believing that turning back is the safer option. Maybe you've done everything right and still haven't seen results. But that doesn't mean you're failing. Sometimes the fruit ripens underground before it ever breaks to surface. And if you quit just before the seed sprouts, you'll never know how close the miracle was. This world doesn't reward those who start, it rewards those who stay the course. I'm not saying your path will always be fair. There will be times when you do more than others but progress slower. There will be days when lazy people get praised, while you, the one grinding, are overlooked. But that's not a reason to let go, because you're not doing this for applause. You're doing it because deep down you know that if you quit now, you'll regret it. Don't let a few rough days fool you into thinking you're going nowhere. Don't let a few harsh words make you forget why you began. Don't let today's feeling of not enough cause you to abandon a path that could make you proud for a lifetime. Because the only thing worse than failing is knowing you could have, but didn't. Understand that obstacles are part of the shaping process. They're not there to block you. They're there to separate those truly worthy of the finish line. And if you start seeing obstacles as challenges rather than death sentences, you'll begin to change. You'll start asking, who must I become to overcome this? Instead of, why is this happening to me? That one shift in your question, from victim to visionary, will change everything. You don't need to always move fast. Some days not collapsing is a win. Some days moving forward simply means standing firm in the storm. And you're allowed to be tired, you're allowed to slow down, you're even allowed to rest, but never, ever quit. Because you don't know what tomorrow might bring, and you deserve to see the reward for everything you've quietly endured. I've met people who seemed like they'd never rise again after their fall, but they did. Not because things got easier, but because they decided not to let one bad chapter define their entire story. They didn't deny the hardship. They just refused to be swallowed by it. And you can do the same. If you hold tightly to one unshakable belief, I'm not stopping here, no matter where you are, how far you've come or what you're facing. Remember that on the other side of the obstacle is a stronger version of you. And you will never meet that version if you stop now. So, take a deep breath, tighten your grip on your face, and keep walking. You don't need to be perfect. You don't even need to be strong yet. You just need to keep moving forward, one step. There comes a moment, one moment, that if you dare to make a true decision, your life will change forever. It's not the moment you make money. It's not when someone finally recognizes you. It's this exact moment, when you choose clearly and completely that you will win. Not win to outdo anyone else, not win to avenge your past, but win because you're simply tired of living a life that has never touched the highest version of who you're meant to be. Winning does not begin with a result, it begins with a decision, a non-negotiable commitment, a quiet promise. You whisper to yourself, I will not stop until I'm proud of my life. And once you truly make that decision, hesitation fades. You no longer back down every time you're tired. You no longer wait for proof. You walk forward as if what you want is already a certainty. I've seen so many people live their entire lives in limbo. They want success but never really decide. They try a little, do it when inspired, see how it goes, but they never go all in. And you know what happens to those who don't go all in? They never go far enough to see results. They stop halfway and forever live with the question, what if I had kept going? Don't be that person. Don't live the rest of your life with what if haunting you. Instead, start living with a clear decision today. I will do it. All the way. I will win. With no retreat. And to do that, you must stop looking for reasons to delay. Stop asking others if they believe in you. Stop waiting for perfect conditions. The time to decide is not when everything aligns. It's the moment you're clear enough to realize that you are the deciding factor. The world will not hand victory to those who are not ready to claim it. If you hesitate, the outcome will hesitate. If you're cautious, success will approach you in cautious fragments. But if you choose to believe, to commit, to hold your ground even when no one understands or cheers, you are creating a new kind of gravity, the gravity of a person who has decided and who no longer looks back. To decide to win means to live as if there is no other option, no backup plan, no side doors, no if not then maybe. There's only one path, and that is forward. You don't allow yourself to revert to your old self because you know the cost of going back is a lifetime of regret. And once you've tasted what it feels like to live aligned with your potential, you'll never want to shrink again. I'm not saying it will be easy. No one who has succeeded ever did so without wanting to quit. But between those who fall and those who rise, the difference is not pain, it's the decision. Those who stop use pain as an excuse. Those who move forward use pain as fuel. And you, right now, can choose to turn your past failures into stepping stones or into shackles. Which do you want? Ask yourself, if I knew for certain that I would succeed, how would I act today? What would I do right now? What hesitation would I finally drop? Because here's the truth. Even before the results show up, you can already act like a winner. And the way you act, day by day, will lead you to exactly where you're meant to go. Life doesn't choose the most talented, it chooses the most determined. Don't wait for motivation is the reward of action, not the requirement to begin. Start as if you already have everything you need, because you do. You have the power to choose. You have the ability to learn. You have the will to rise. And most importantly, you have the freedom to choose a life with no regrets. And once you've made that decision, lock it in. Don't let anyone, anything, or any situation shake you. Every morning when you wake up, remind yourself, I don't need to do everything in one day. I just need to do one thing. Move toward my goal, and you keep going, day after day, until one day you look back and realize you've crossed every single thing you once thought was impossible. I want you to understand this. Deciding to win is not a powerful quote for social media. It's a quiet vow you keep with yourself in the lonely days, the exhausted days, the uncertain days. It's the voice that whispers when no one's around, no matter what, I'm still going. And that whisper, steady, persistent, unshaken, is what builds real victory. So if you've made it this far, through the inner chapters, through the moments of deep reflection, then let today be the day you place your hand over your heart, close your eyes, and say to yourself, I decide to win. No looking back, no quitting, no shrinking ever again. And once you've made that decision, step forward. No noise needed, just consistency. Just one step after another, carrying one truth. It's time to live like a winner, from the inside out.